Hello, and welcome to the Bitchuation Room podcast. What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for being here, for being your fabulous, wonderful selves, for knowing that this is the best political podcast in existence. It's also best comedy podcast. See, I win in both categories, and I want you to know that. So good to have you here. We've got a fucking great show. Why? Well, because Aida Rodriguez, more like Idol Rodriguez, is here. That's right. Stand-up comic. You've seen her on TYT. You've seen her in person. You've seen her special, or if you haven't, you're fucking up. I'm so happy to have her here. I've been hunting her down like every week pretty much and be like, hey, what up? Can you come? And anyway, we finally got her, and we're going to be breaking down, of course, just another Trump rally, even more unhinged than all the ones before. For some reason, he's just competing with himself. That's what happens when you're like the crazy goat. You know, if you're the goat of being nuts, you just got to one-up yourself. We're also going to be talking with Braxton Brewington of the Debt Collective about Biden's debt relief plan. What are the next steps? Is this going to be it from this administration? Will the GOP successfully litigate against even this very small yet important step? I'm very excited to have him on the show a little bit later on. We're also going to be talking about the Jackson water crisis, our own little moment of crisis, in addition to everything else that's going on in the world, whether it's in Pakistan or throughout Europe, wildfires. Climate change is threatening everybody. And when you've defunded a town the way Jackson has been defunded, then guess what? Poor people are the first ones to suffer. So I'm going to talk about that. And ending, I never really tease the final segment. I always want it to be a surprise / I forget. But today, the final segment is just so good. It's so good. I want you to know that we're going to be talking about Howard Schultz being required by the NLRB to apologize to Starbucks workers for basically union busting and then reminding them of their rights as protected under federal law. So I'm asking you all, and I'm asking my guests, which boss have you had who you think owes you an apology? You need that. And it's never too late. It's never too late. So stay tuned for that. And then finally, I'm going to do a solo bonus episode for all of our patrons, all the Frantifa, the real Frantifa, right? The real Frantifa. None of these rhino Frantifa, just the real Frantifa. About probably one of the crazier stances I've heard on defending abortion bans from a state lawmaker that you just listened to and you're like, how do you have, like, this dude's name better be like, I don't know, free porn Mick Crypto. Otherwise, I don't understand how people like this get elected anywhere. South Carolina is, of course, voting this week on a potential full abortion ban. You got to hear this. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room to become part of the Frantifa. Don't miss it. You also get the backlog of all the shows that we've done, all the bonus content. You get special access to 20% off merch. Again, merch, bitchuationroom.com. Anyone can buy it. Patrons get 20% off. You get a shout out if you're a patron at $10 or more. You're going to get special bonus maternity leave content. I'm going to keep the weekly roundups going for all the patrons. And so stay tuned for that. That's going to be exciting. As well as like access to our AMAs, and you can just hit me up. You know what I'm saying? Guest suggestions. Last week's guest was a suggestion from one of the oldest patrons, Sophia, who's wonderful. So yeah, support the show because no one else will. Just kidding. Also, TBR-Live on Venmo, TBR Live on Cash App if you don't fuck with Patreon. But again, you should. And finally, with that, let's get into this goddamn week, guys. Get your bitch caps on. This is What Are You Bitching About? obviously, other than the fact that I am quite pregnant and my inner thighs are on fire and it's difficult to sleep and it's hot as hell in Los Angeles right now. That's all aside. Leaving aside the fact that my mom calls me every other day and is like, I got an email from Best Buy that says that they charged me $400 to be part of the Geek Squad. And I'm like, okay, Mom, one, who's the email from? And it's like, Giuseppe Ancori at gte.net. I'm like, yeah, that's not Best Buy. That's not it's not Best. I'm sorry. Ma. Also, has your credit card been charged? No. Can you do those two things before you call me? Like, seriously though, the scammers are out to pick off our grandparents and parents, people. And we're trying to equip them with some basic self-defense mechanisms. Number one, who's the email from? Number two, did you actually get charged at all? And once she realized that, it's like, oh, anyway. Okay, so then we can move on. Very warm. No, but I'm really bitching about the fact that ever since Joe Biden had his little like Darth Maul speech last week, where he was flanked by like military dudes backlit in red, it was pretty sick. He said things like the Republican Party is afraid of and is cowed to Donald Trump, and it's an extremist part of the Republican Party. It's the MAGA Republicans, according to him. He drew a very distinct differentiation between MAGA Republicans and what he calls, I don't know, the good old boys that I remember from my youth when I first got into Congress, 500 years ago. So he's giving them a bunch of outs, and yet the right-wing media, once again, as we've looked at, freaking out on him. First, they freaked out about semi-fascists. Now they're freaking out on him, calling them a danger to democracy. And they're like, oh my God, how dare you? No, but that really hurt. Like, they're the ones who are going around like, you socialist commie, like abortionist piece of shit. Like, you bartender, as if that's a slur, right? And then you're like, okay, but your policies are fascist. You have inspired mass shooters who kill brown people on purpose. Your president, when he was elected, people celebrated, in heavy air quotes, by heiling Hitler and toppling Jewish headstones in Jewish cemeteries. Then a year later, your Unite the Right rally resulted in a neo-Nazi driving a car that killed a woman. So I'm going to go ahead and say you're kind of fascist. You're ultra-nationalist, jingoistic, chauvinistic, Christian nationalist, white supremacists. I think we can, who don't believe in democracy, as evidenced by January 6th. You have sitting Congress people speaking at the America First PAC conference. America First is a well-known anti-Semitic, white nationalist political line throughout American politics, parroted by Charles Lindbergh during World War II as an excuse not to get involved in that war, right? But from a Nazi isolationist angle, parroted by the KKK. I'm going to say you should just own up to it and understand that you are extremists, and yeah, you might be fascist. And they're like, oh my God, that hurts. Here's Nikki Haley saying that exact thing.
The idea that he condemned us was worse than Hillary calling us deplorables, was worse than Obama calling us extremists. He basically called us bad people.
I put the seat down every time, okay? And I hold doors for people, and I wipe the area around the sink in airport and airplane bathrooms. You know how there's always water? I wipe it. How can you say I'm a bad person just because I think that people of color and white people should live in separate communities? Oh my God. just because I think immigrants bring disease. Like, you gotta wonder, fuck Hitler, but was he this fragile? Like, was he really all that fragile? Like, was he just like, and all I want to do is gas the Jews, and you're being really, really mean about it? Like, what the fuck, man? Just own up to your political cause, bro. That's even sadder. And it makes me think, I'm not a religious person, and I really find this phrase used by like weirdos a lot, like, oh, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people that it didn't exist. And I'm like, I think the greatest trick that fascists are pulling is the idea that that political philosophy doesn't exist, that they're not fascists. That's some devil shit right there. Like, oh no, we don't believe in this, except we just enact it every single day. Anyway, that's what I'm bitching about. What are you guys bitching about? And what is my guest? Comedian, actress, writer, and activist who has shows pretty much everywhere. DC, Los Angeles, and San Jose this fall. Do not miss her. And her special on HBO Max, Fighting Words, which is funny as hell, personal. You'll laugh, you'll cry. Please welcome Aida Rodriguez.
Hold on, I had to unmute myself. I was still laughing at your Hitler.
Right? Like, it's so sad to run away from your own ideology. You know what I mean? Like,
because it's not ideology, right? It's rooted in hatred. It's whatever justifies the hatred, whatever is the vessel to get the hatred across. If it's ideology, if it's religion, it's social, social commentary, but whatever you can use to say, I hate people who are different than me because I either want to be those people or I hate myself. It's just easier to say that I'm a Republican.
Totally. Or I refuse to go to therapy, like, even though I have the money for it. Like, let's go to therapy.
And people that say, and not to just pinpoint Republicans, because there are quite a few racist Democrats and, Democrats who are homophobic and transphobic and blah, 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 blah. So, but it's just people using, there's this thing that I've had to reckon with in the last couple of years in my own career, that people will demonize you to justify their jealousy. And so a lot of times that's rooted in that, because I have some queer friends that look so happy, and the people who I hear say that they just don't, that's against the Bible. And I'm like, I'd rather go to hell and be happy than not, because you guys live fucking miserable. So
that's how whenever I see like a dude with a fetus sign saying, like a bloody fetus outside of a Planned Parenthood, it's like, you're going to hell. And I'm like, but are you going to be in heaven, man with bloody fetus sign? Because you're not a fucking vibe. I don't fuck with you. Like, I don't want to be in heaven with you.
Yeah.
That sounds like it sucks. So you're basically making a strong case for hell right now.
Pretty.
Aida, it's been a long time. You've been all over the place. But what are you bitching about now?
You know what I'm bitching about? These people who are having these tantrums about student loans, that have been crying and whining, talking about how they had to pay their student loans when they got those student loans and had opportunities based on their privilege, and are really upset about the fact that people who don't make enough money to survive in this country got a little bit of a break. I mean, I say pardon all the student loans, right? That's what I say. So that makes me, spawn of Castro. Yes, some people say it, but I just think that I'm so tired of hearing motherfuckers who have had, just to hear with Tommy Lauren, like when we were at Politicon, who was still on her parents' remember, she was still on her parents' healthcare plan.
I remember this.
Criticizing people, and it's just this hypocrisy that lingers with this group of people, and I can't even relegate it to a political party, because it's a disservice to a political party. It's just a low-grade thinkers, like this group of people who believe that it is okay for them, but not other people. And it's just, I'm tired. I'm so sick of it. And it's really gross and just really ugly and un-American based on what they say America is, to
Right.
want to see other Americans suffer.
But I think that's that's in dispute, right? I think a lot of people think that being American is sort of like being in a bucket of crabs and clawing over all these other crabs just to get yours, and then shitting on the rest of the pile, and then being like,
Yeah.
well, I got out. Why can't you get out?
Mhm.
And like, you're someone who's faced a lot of adversity in your career and your life,
Yep.
and has worked very, very hard. And I don't imagine you're like, I think everyone should sleep in their car. Like, I know you openly talk about that.
No.
Like, right? Like, you're not someone who's now resentful of people who didn't have to fight as much as you did.
No, not at all. I fight so that they don't have to. I would love to I would love for me to have been the last woman that had to experience what I experienced at the hands of abuse and oppression. I would love to have been that's where the line was drawn. If me going through that would have said that, it would have made it easier for every woman that came after me, or every person who was unhoused that came after me, 100%. But it's an ugliness that is, being revealed. It's not new. It's always been there. It's this ugliness of that's being revealed of people who are bitter and unhappy. And there's something deeper. It's not just a social take. It comes from an emotional root, because people who are genuinely happy don't get joy out of making other people miserable. So it just comes from a different place. I'm the only person in my family in my tax bracket. I work very hard so that they can all join me. It's not like I want to sprinkle, hey guys, I want them all to get to the place where they can all survive and be well. And I'm gonna have to pay some things and taxes and more than them because I'm in a different situation. I'm not bitching about that. You guys catch up, or
Right.
I had to do it. It's just ugliness. It's very ugly.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me, yeah. Anyway, well, we got to move on, and we're going to talk obviously more about this with Braxton in a little bit, but we got to get into the week. A few things that happen. I will catch you up, and then we'll dig into two stories. This was the week where that it turns out that part of what the documents the FBI found at Mar-a-Lago were 48 empty folders. And I know what you're thinking. Something was removed from those folders. Counterpoint, what if those folders were just empty because they were aspirational, like they were going to put something in it, just like the empty folder I have in my filing cabinet labeled retirement? Like, sometimes there's going to be something in there. A Trump-appointed judge granted the former president his request for a special master to review the documents that the DOJ took from his Gulf estate. Trump and the DOJ will have to agree on who that special master will be. And yes, one of the candidates will be Rudy Giuliani in drag, trying to, as he'll call it, pull a Bugs Bunny. That will happen. Mark my words. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson says we should stop the labor shortage by getting seniors to work again. And to do that, he wants to not charge them the 6% payroll tax. Isn't that just adorable? You will get to keep every penny of your $7.25 an hour, which is, yes, the current minimum wage. Now, are we going to raise that in Wisconsin? No. And like, I know you guys are thinking, God, this is so late stage capitalism, but I think it gets worse. I think that bosses are going to try and reanimate corpses before they ever agree to like giving you a livable wage or a union. So support Mandela Barnes is what I want to say to that. And I'm just making sure my audio is good. Might be. There's a new COVID booster out targeting the BA.5 subvariant of Omicron, but unlike the other shots, this one hasn't been clinically tested on humans, but on mice. And I, for one, am going to be taking it because fuck mice. I'm tired of mice taking my indoor dining spots, my concert tickets, going clubbing, making out with strangers that buy them rum and cokes. Like, mice are living their best life right now. And I'm still masking at the grocery store. So yes, please. Leonardo DiCaprio has split from his girlfriend of 4 years just days after her 25th birthday. And it seems like Leo just doesn't date women older than 25, which is her loss, but my unborn baby's gain. Just like a ripe 72-year-old Leo. Yes, girl. That is my retirement plan for 4 years. The web host Cloudflare has finally dropped the website Kiwi Farms, whose logo looks like a clitoris. Can we just observe? That is a full clit. Like, that is the anatomical clitoris. If you're listening as a podcast, I think you know what I mean. It's like the full realm of it, all the nerves. Anyway, this site, Good Riddance, it was basically a site to bully and dox trans people, get them swatted, put hits out on their life. And we can only hope that the site gets sold for parts and that the name is awarded to a gay ranch resort in New Zealand where it properly belongs. And finally, I'm sorry, this is going on. Finally, Chile rejected a vote to change their Pinochet holdover constitution. 62% of the population voted no. And as disappointed as I am, just getting that vote is pretty fucking insane. Like, the proposal was pretty much a diner menu of everything you could want in a real democracy. Rights for indigenous people, reproductive rights, rights for the environment, requiring women or 50% of state bodies and companies owned by the government. And they got 38% of the public to vote for it. Like, that's pretty good, I'm just going to say. And RIP, rest in power, to journalist and activist Barbara Ehrenreich, who died. Everyone, please read her book, Nickel and Dimed. There is no such thing as unskilled labor. And she had the most incredible take on the working poor, who are, she called, philanthropists of our society. To be a member of the working poor is to be an anonymous donor, a nameless benefactor to everyone. That is what she said. For everything else, this is the week where. Okay, so this was the week where Donald Trump held a rally in Pennsylvania for the fledgling GOP candidate, Dr. Oz. Aida, I don't know how much you've been following this race, but Dr. Mehmet is not looking good. Not looking good.
You know, the dog and pony show that Malcolm X referred to shows up every week in American politics. I am almost speechless sometimes as where we are, so much that I have shut down emotionally because I feel like I have to prepare for the apocalypse. But it is, I'm just like, the end is near, and it's not because the Bible says so, but because man has decided that. But, you know, the Dr. Oz has been so problematic in so many different ways. And I'm always going to go back to this, where how we end up with a president like Donald Trump, where Oz is even a name in the political realm, where, I mean, I like The Rock, but even The Rock said he thought about running for president, where Kanye thinks that the America has, you know, two really big issues with. One, our educational system is garbage, and the average person doesn't have the information that they need, which is why they vote against their own interests. They keep people in office because they're nice to them or they look nice. Right. They have no idea what's going on.
They sold them a supplement once.
They sold them a supplement once. And if you look at the, if you listen to the talking points of some of these people who make it to air, which often they do because of people like Jordan Klepper and Emma, and people who get an opportunity to go out there and have conversations with these people, which I think is sad because it indicates, it gives you a good view into what, you know, remember the people who didn't know that Obamacare was the Affordable Care Act, and they were for the Affordable Care Act and against Obamacare, and some people voted against their own interest to have, or what, it's just, we are in a Kurt Vonnegut book. And so to think about that, and then the celebrity worship in this country, because that's what they keep people occupied with. They're constantly being fed information that keeps them distracted from what's really happening that's affecting them. We're just in a very sad state. And you know, unfortunately for the average American who doesn't have the information and doesn't have the resources, they are the ones that are suffering and struggling. And so when you talk about Dr. Oz, it's just sad to me that we're even having a conversation where we have to mention his name. It's all fair.
You know, the other person who's sad that he has to mention his name is Donald Trump, in fact.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, very mad he has to share the limelight with Mehmet Oz. Trump's probably behind the scenes going, Oprah didn't give me my career. I was
Yep.
big before that. But let's just watch a couple clips from this speech. And I know, yeah, it's a Trump speech. Fuck Trump. What is he saying? You know, another crazy thing. But this goes to this next level, which I feel like the clown car, like the wheels haven't just come off. It's like we're like Flintstoning it. They're just like like using their feet to walk in their little clown car. So here Trump is talking about why we should fear the radical left.
The radical left Democrat Party is not, in my opinion, a 50% party within our country. They're against God, guns, oil, law enforcement, voter ID, tax cuts, regulation cuts, the Constitution, and they're against our founding fathers. Other than that, actually, they're quite good.
Other than that, actually, they're quite good. See, that to me is just like a strong punchline. That's just like
Yeah.
you know, he's got open mic, like hack comic energy.
Yep.
Aida. And that was just like, other than that, they're good people. It's the same thing. Remember, Mexicans, they're rapists, they're bringing drugs. Other than that, they're good people. Against the Constitution and tax cuts. This is a guy who passed tax cuts for the rich, including you could write off a private plane straight up, $60 million. Boom, done. Against the Constitution, the guy who sicked an entire mob on the Capitol building. Like, they do not see in the mirror.
You know, and the thing is it plays right. Nobody insults his base more than he does, right? Because he knows he can get away with, I mean, he has someone die from taking hydrochloroquine because they were listening to him. So he knows the power that he wields over these people. And so he uses it. He's like, these dummies, like, do you don't ever see Donald Trump out there taking pictures with people in the mines and the farmers, like with the average person? His celebrity pics are always photo ops, and it's always, you know, the pictures with people who have influence and popularity. He doesn't care about those people. So he just tells them what they want to hear, that he's just emotionally playing with them. But the fact that this dummy gets a chance to even be in this realm, it's so it's very scary about where we are as a country.
I feel like his star is fading. I'm going to be totally honest with you, but I don't buy that DeSantis is as bad, but that's just me. And I will say, what I will say about DeSantis is he doesn't really have the pizzazz that Trump does. I mean, let's just listen to this next bit where Trump invokes Vladimir Lenin, or as he calls it, Lenin.
I believe it was Lenin. Did anyone ever hear of Lenin? People would say it with less sophistication, Lenin. Lenin, I like the way they say that. Where he said, the vote counter is far more important than the candidate. Well, that turned out to be true. The vote counter is far more important than the candidate.
Lenin. So he's misquoting. Okay, it's not Lenin. The internet actually says that it's Stalin, that Stalin said that the vote counter has more influence than the vote, the person who cast the vote. But even Stalin didn't say that. He like read a thing online, then misremembered whether it was Stalin or Lenin, and now he's just Lenin, like Puerto Rico.
Because he doesn't think that those people who follow him know what. That's why he has such fun with it. It's not like his base is gonna fact check him.
Right.
He's like these. I'm telling you, I know that he's probably just like, it doesn't matter. They don't know. They don't know. Like, you know, that's why they support him.
Exactly. They're not gonna be like, actually Leninist pedagogy was definitely not about that. And
Exactly.
Lenin was a much better precursor. He should have remained in power. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know my my deep socialist history. What is to be done, Francesca? I don't know. But okay, final little bit from this Trump rally. They need music now, Ida. It's not enough that he could just speak. It's because it's like it's been, hour 3 you start to sleep, and like in every Marvel movie, and then when the music picks up, you're like, oh shit, something good's happening. Here we go.
As long as we are confident and united, the tyrants we are fighting do not stand even a chance, because we are Americans, and Americans kneel to God and God alone. My fellow citizens, this incredible journey we are on together has only just begun, and it is time to start talking about greatness for our country again.
They replaced the black dude, the blacks for Trump.
They took him out?
Yeah, he got replaced.
They were like, you can't do a .com. The only people who can advertise during these rallies are Trump and his minted gold coins.
Yeah.
Gold. We think it's gold. So they had to implore music. The music lasts for like 4 or 5 minutes. I was almost waiting for him to be like, you can stop that now. Because it's like, even, don't you feel like it's a little corny even for him? But no.
It's culty. Music is a tool that's used, right, to soothe and calm people. Like, it's like, there's this old movie, and I just saw it with Steve Martin and Deborah Winger about these religious people that were taking advantage of people. It's called, I forgot the name of it, but that was part of it. Like, the music was a part of the whole, and people are like this with their eyes closed. It looks like a revival, a church revival.
Oh, yes. Oh, of course. It's like that. Well, that's the thing, is like, you're just waiting for him to pass around the donation bucket, right? You're like, and that's why, lights go down, music starts. Please give this pastor who already has a Rolex.
So church, yeah. And that's what they do at the rally. And people are, struggling, and they're giving their last, buying those expensive hats. They don't have it. I mean, you can look at it. A lot of those people don't have the health care. They don't have dental, vision, but they will give him their money.
Yes.
He's promising them.
Do they think that undocumented folks are just hoarding all of that? That once they buy the Trump coin, that takes suddenly an undocumented immigrant will be like, here's your health care, damn it.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, somebody there probably thinks that. I mean, he's predatorial. He's really taking advantage of people who, as much as we want to demonize them and hate them, those people are victims as well. They're victims of, the American education system, the healthcare system. They're victims. They just don't know that they're victims, and that's what makes it worse.
And this is a whole genre of politics that tells them that the left is the one that constantly is being victimized and victimizing themselves, just because we celebrate diversity, because we understand and accept people from different religion. No, that's a victim mentality. Even to be aware of anything is the victim mentality. No, you just got to be you're a billionaire. You are a billionaire. Go. Okay, so overall, the race for Oz is not going good. The Senate race in Pennsylvania, he is trailing definitely in money, and I know in polling he's trailing Fetterman. And Mitch McConnell even admitted, he was like, look, our Senate candidates aren't that good. He was looking whatchamacallit, he's looking at Herschel Walker. He's looking at Herschel Walker in Georgia, and he's looking at Mehmet Oz. He's seeing them I don't know if we're gonna do this. Does
it seem a little is it a little odd that the black dude and the guy named Mehmet is not doing well with the base of people who hate Black Lives Matter and think that everyone who has a name like Mehmet is a member of ISIS. Like, what makes those people think the model minority mentality has never been good for any person who is associated with racist, oppressive thinking people. So I think it's funny to watch. Of course, the people you are trying to appeal to think you're the problem.
Yeah, totally. They're gonna blame. Oh, they're absolutely, like, if JD Vance loses in Ohio, which also JD Vance not looking good, no one's necessarily gonna blame JD Vance, but they will blame Herschel Walker and Mehmet Oz. Like, I don't know, he just wasn't one of us, wasn't one of our people, even though they're both like millionaires. They're both like super rich. No, I think that's a really interesting, that is an interesting point. Lastly, Trump said this about Mitch McConnell because it's interesting. He's mad at Mitch. He's mad at Mitch for casting doubt on some of the Senate candidates. He's mad at Mitch generally. I'm questioning, does this mean a rift between the two?
Republicans locally that ran things in a lot of states should be ashamed of themselves. Should be ashamed of themselves. And a guy like Mitch McConnell, who allowed this stuff to happen, should be scorned. He should be scorned.
Scorned. He should be banished. I love that. Scorned. How that is the lightest insult Trump has ever issued on anyone, right? Like, oh, I'm so big as a scorn him. When he walks in a room, just look the other way. Scorn.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. Like, I don't know. I've heard talk of Mitch McConnell might be backing, DeSantis, and so Trump's mad and blah blah blah. But like, fucking Mitch McConnell is the harbinger of he's the reason you exist, dude. Like, you can't throw him under the bus. You need him. Anyway, fuck Trump and all that noise. Yay, Fetterman. Everybody get involved and donate, make calls, etc. Let's move on to something important and crucial here in another part of the country. This was the week where, after heavy rain and flooding, residents of Jackson, Mississippi were left completely without potable water to drink, but also water to shower with, water to brush their teeth with. Once again, Jackson is the capital of Mississippi, home to 150,000 people, 80% of whom are Black. And it turns out the water treatment plant has actually been on the fritz for a very long time. So this is from the Washington Post. The water system in Mississippi has been failing for years. In 2021, a harsh winter storm knocked the system out for a month. Even when the water is flowing from the taps, residents struggle with intermittent boiling water advisories and high bills for water that is not always safe to drink. This week, in part because of severe floods, the treatment plant failed completely, leaving the city's residents without water to drink, bathe, or even flush toilets. I think I might have lost Aida for a hot minute. Governor Tate Reeves declared Jackson's ongoing water crisis an immediate health threat. Experts say this crisis was years in the making, a result of inadequate funding for essential infrastructure upgrades. For the past year, leaders of this majority Black Democratic-led city have been pushing for additional funding from the white Republicans who run the state, but little has come of those appeals. So speaking of Tate Reeves, this is from AJ Plus, my alma mater. The EPA warned Mississippi in 2020 of imminent dangers for people drinking Jackson's tap water. The 80% Black city has sought repair since the 1940s. And Governor Reeves repeatedly refused requests for funding, and the state only approved 6% of requested repair funds last year. Only 6%. Of what they've been fighting for and asking for since the 1940s. Now, does that have anything to do with, I don't know, white flight, the demographics of that city? Let's take a look. This is also from the Washington Post. Since the 80s, looking at the demographics in Jackson, the population drastically changed since its peak in 1980 at about 200,000. And you see the number of residents, Black residents, climbing to above 120,000, and the number of white residents going down to a little bit over 20,000. just complete reversal. And so no wonder this city has been defunded, right? And no wonder people like Tate Reeves are now making blanket excuses for some shit that has been happening on their watch. They knew was going on. So more specifically about that, and it's not just water, obviously, going on in Jackson. It's just one of many crises facing Jackson, Hartwell said. She said this is a citizen. She said every aspect of the city's infrastructure needs to be addressed. She often has to take her car for repairs because of potholes. During the recent flood, she almost lost her car driving to work on a flooded bridge. She also says the city has to get crime under control. A few months ago, she was the victim of a carjacking. And this is from Shambe Jones. This is a Cooperation Jackson, which is doing a lot of outreach right now, getting bottled water to people, helping people just make ends meet. Says that the water crisis has been building for years. Jones pointed to a deal that Jackson struck in 2013 with Siemens, a German multinational company, to clean up the city's billing system. The project failed spectacularly, with the city suing and receiving a $90 million settlement. So right now, Tate Reeves is saying we should privatize the water system in Jackson, right? Not like let's fully fund it like I'm supposed to, like they've been asking for, but we should privatize it. Siemens tried to privatize it a few years ago, and get that. I noticed the billing system, like, oh, I guess people are being paid being charged $300 when their water is shit anyway. And they're like, oh, we'll get that under control. And they didn't do anything. They gouged the city, and then they had to pay out $90 million to it. Did that fix the problem? Clearly not. But it's just the idea that they were thinking of relying on privatizing the water system is insane at this point. Aida, we lost you for a second, but you're back. Had you been following this story, and just thoughts on where we are, where this major American city has no potable water?
It is so exhausting. I'm sure you know that we are still talking about this, right? We dealt when Flint was brought to our attention. We talked about cities who lacked the proper infrastructure so that they could survive, not thrive, survive.
Right.
But when you think about communities where the people are predominantly of color, Black people in America, and you hear about stuff like this, I'm exhausted talking about it. I just want to know, I want to just fast forward to solution. Like,
right.
What do we need to do? Because it's not just talking points. Like, we need to boycott. We need to know where we put our money. We need to mobilize people. People don't have basic information. They don't know who they're voting for that supports this stuff. I think it's just disgusting to see that in 2022, where anywhere in the world there's a capacity of some nuclear arm that can end humanity, and that we have the arms for it and continue to have the money to keep those things in the world, which we don't really need that many if they really are capable of ending it all, right? We have money for all kinds of foolishness. I go to these airports and I see these aquariums in the airports that are funded by people's taxpayer dollars. An aquarium, as you walk by on your layover, frustrated as hell because you got on a mask and you don't want to get COVID, but you're going to want to watch this rainbow fish on the way there because they spend billions of dollars in the airport. And there are children in the city who live under bridges and people in Mississippi who don't have water, along with the people in Flint and all of the other places in America where they don't have good water, which I have an app on my phone that tells you exactly what's in the water wherever you are, just like I have my land acknowledgement app. It's like, thank you,
I like that.
My Choctaw people, for letting me be on your land. By the way, I can't drink the water because there's arsenic in it. That's my reality. So it's just amazing to me how we call ourselves, because we love to say, and we know America is not the greatest place on earth, and you can love it and be honest about it, because my mom ain't the best mother on the planet. But I just think that we sit here and we have these conversations ad nauseum. And the truth of it is that somebody needs help, right? And they don't have the tools, right? We're not mobilizing, we're just talking. We're not going to the communities and saying you can't vote for this person, we got to get rid of this DA. You know, your senator is not in support of you having reproductive rights. They don't know, they're too busy surviving. You want to stop getting carjacked? You want to stop getting carjacked? Look at the crime rate since COVID.
Right.
It's like, and you can demonize these people all you want. Everybody is surviving. That's what happens. You want to purge? You love to watch the movies and the TV show. You're getting it. It's.
I think that it's also, you're right about the education, and also just like what we're consuming media wise. And nationally, like these stories rarely make it. Like this has been, you know, every single resident is like, yeah, you guys are late to the party because we've been having to boil our water for a really long time. But anyway, thank you for paying attention. And we would really like, you to not just move the cameras to a new water crisis. But it puts the spotlight on, just like COVID did, Tate Reeves being the fucking worst governor. Like this guy did not believe COVID was real, didn't give a shit about it, didn't care if people were dying. He also is an incredible choice motherfucker, like super draconian when it comes to reproductive rights. What about all the pregnant women having to drink contaminated water? Are you pro-life? Are you really pro-life? Or do you not actually care? Or because it's an 80% black city? Nah, you know, if it was your white neighborhood, then you might have some money for it. But it's like, I think that's what matters, is like the local politics have become really, really heightened. I didn't know who this idiot with a third grader haircut Tate Reeves was. I mean, until recently.
Yeah.
You know, this sort of like Chucky ass who got, you know, found a comb somewhere in a closet looking motherfucker. Like, I was so happy to live my life not knowing who Tate Reeves was. And then even I, like, because of COVID, was like, oh man, that governor's fucking up and that governor's fucking up, you know? And it's a blessing and a curse to know who these people are. It's like if you say their name 3 times, they come out of the closet. Anyway. But apparently there's now water pressure back in Jackson, but we'll see. Like, this is one of those stories where you're like, yeah, there has to be accountability. Just like in Flint, there was, I mean, very little accountability, but who's honestly following up with that story? There's barely accountability in like Uvalde when children are shot en masse.
The attention span of the people, it's like they keep them cycling out, and the news cycles in and cycles out, and it's indoctrinating. You know, it's like not a conspiracy theory for me. I see it in real time. Like, you watch, I know people who are like, oh, that's not what we're on this week. This week we're on this. Well, that wasn't resolved, and now there's a scroll of things that haven't been resolved. And here we are, Black people in America still being the target of oppression. And like, people are scared. We don't want to cause the race stuff. Why are we always bringing up race? Motherfucking people who been at the on the end of the short end of the stick in this country for how many years? Is we passed 400, so don't hit me with the 400 no more. We are still talking about people begging for respect and just human decency, and these people are okay with those little kids not drinking good water.
Yeah. And finally, like, this is like Tucker Carlson straight up called Biden's plan for like climate plans, which like address a little bit of this environmental racism, like a portion of it, like infrastructure, right, basically for you know, low income and disproportionately, right, Black and brown communities. He called that racist. He called that, like, just openly, like, again, he doesn't even say reverse racist. You just say, yeah, that's racist against white people. Like, it's all a plan to like help people of color. And you're like, I can't believe that we're being fed this nonsense.
Well, Tucker Carlson and all of the Goonies know they know what to say to move their base. Like, mind you, these are the people who said that they are they were hyping up the anti-vaccination people while having vaccinations. They're the ones that were isolating and staying away from people. So they
With
just know.
with like low key eugenics, like low key Darwinistic / high key, like, oh, majority Black people are being affected by COVID. Whoops.
Yeah.
Guess people don't know how to wash their hands. Like they almost essentially said that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Anyway, we have to move on. He's been waiting so patiently in the wings. Super excited to have him here, breaking all the things down with the Biden debt relief plan and what's next on the table. He's the press secretary and organizer at Debt Collective, the nation's first debtors union. Please welcome Braxton Brewington.
Hey, glad to be
Braxton,
here.
so good to have you here. Did I lose you? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Maybe that's just me. It is just me. It is on my side. Don't worry. Make a note of that. Braxton, okay. So tell us what is in Biden's student debt relief plan, and more importantly, not more importantly, but how people can access it. We've been talking about it, but like, how do you get it? But like, what are the main pillars of his plan?
Sure. So first off, everyone who makes under $125,000 a year, or married couples who make under $250,000 a year, are going to have $10,000 or up to $10,000, depending on how much you have, of your student debt completely knocked off.
Mhm.
Now, if you have a Pell Grant, if you're a Pell Grant recipient at any moment, right, that's another particular point, because I know some folks who maybe were a Pell for all 4 years or just one semester. If you
Right.
are a Pell Grant recipient at any moment, you get an additional $10,000. So that could be $20,000 for you. So that is a pretty big deal for a lot of people. That has the potential to zero out student loan debt for 20 million Americans. That's almost half of the people who have student loan debt.
Yeah.
If you have the Pell Grant and you want this 20K, which I'm assuming is everyone who that applies to, the sort of tough thing is you're going to have to apply. There is an application, and we pushed back against this and still are pushing against this, because there's no reason for them to make people apply. They should just automatically eliminate this debt.
Yeah.
But you'd have to go to studentaid.gov and apply. The application does not come out until early October. So it's not out yet. And then you will apply. You should get your relief about 4 to 6 weeks after you apply.
Okay.
But you want to apply as soon as possible, because payments are set to resume in January. We're pushing to make sure that doesn't happen either. But payments are set to resume in January, so we wouldn't want someone who's eligible for a debt cancellation to end up having to pay on student loans that the government's going to cancel. So those are a couple of the big points about the announcement. There is some smaller stuff that's happening. For example, the income-driven repayment plan, which a lot of people are on and can join. Before, it was set to 10% of your discretionary income. So after your rent, after your major bills, you're supposed to pay 10% per month. That's been capped at 5% if your original balance was below $12,000. So there's a lot of ifs and ifs here.
Qualifying. Wait. So it's capped at 5% of your discretionary. So it's like, I don't know, like discretionary could be like movie fund or, stuff that's like after all my basic needs are taken care of kind of thing. That's pretty good. But, and then is that means tested? Or you're saying at 12,000?
Right. From my understanding, that's people whose original balance was below $12,000.
Okay.
So there's a lot of interesting qualifications, but for a lot of people, their payment could be essentially cut in half. And for those people, if you were to pay every month, and a lot of people actually qualify for $0 a month. And so for a lot of those people, if you were to consistently pay whatever that amount is, even if it's $0 a month, the interest will no longer accrue. So there's a couple of small wins here, but they are a lot of qualifiers. And it really is just another, way of sort of revamping the system to make it quote unquote work. But it never really works in the end. And we really just need full student debt cancellation. And we need to just make college free so that nobody needs to go in debt in the first place to get an education.
Yeah. It is like not having, it seems like the last piece of this that I think is sort of transformative is that 10-year cap. Can you talk about that? And then we'll get into like what needs to be different about this.
For the income-driven repayment program.
Yeah. That you can't hold, like after 10 years, it's like, well, you paid what you could. Like, is that how it's working? It's going to work?
Right. So now that income-driven repayment program is, you're supposed to pay for 20 years and then your debt gets canceled. Now they've capped it for that same demographic that we talked about, now they've capped it at 10 years. The problem with the program is that it rarely works. Like, I think something like less than 200 people have ever had their debt canceled through all of these sorts of programs: public service loan forgiveness, income-driven repayment programs. They don't really work, which is why there was a demand to just cancel student debt, right? Because these programs that either came about during the Bush administration or the Obama administration just simply don't work, because the student loan system is not designed to work, because loans don't work. College should just be free. I might say that a couple times.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so, okay, sticking within this like very narrow plan, like what do you beyond full cancellation, what do you think should be different? Like one thing that stood out to me was the $125K, and only because Aida was making this point earlier on in the show. A lot of folks who are like, I paid mine off. No. And a lot of like, I was making, and I've said like, look, anyone on television is not going to be for this because they're all making over 125K easy. Like wealthy people have no buy-in on this, even if they do have loans themselves. So there's this argument to make things universal so that wealthy people can be often, they're against the working, like, folks who don't make as much money as them, like have them be advocates for these programs, have them like cancel their fucking debt too. Who cares? That's my take on it. But what else do you wish were different beyond this? It is 10K is, go ahead.
Yeah. So there shouldn't have been an income cutoff from the beginning, right? There's a lot of people who are like healthcare professionals who make just over $125,000. The people who, it's interesting that, Biden says he won't tax anyone who makes over $400,000, but when it comes to student debt cancellation, right, the number is now about $125,000. And we know $125,000 is really just not what it used to be a couple of years ago, especially when you live in states like California, New York. So first of all, there shouldn't have been an income cutoff. Also, this cancellation should have been administered automatically. So making people apply is a really, really tough bureaucratic process that buries debtors in red tape. And what happens is the people who don't have access to that are actually the people who end up being the most low income, right? So the people who actually, the rollout of this isn't clean, right? There's a announcement, there's some qualifications. The application doesn't exist until a couple of months from now, right? Are these people going to get notifications about the application? Are they going to get reminders? So this isn't clean. And just like other, sort of government run programs, when things are automatic, they work a lot better, right? Social Security, you don't have to, once you hit the age, you're just in the program. You don't have to apply and fill out paperwork to join, right? But when you start to, stimulus checks, right? They just got sent to people's homes. And I know there were some mistakes there, right? But you don't, they just got sent to your direct deposit, or they just got mailed in the check. But when you have to start to fill out this paperwork, then that's when people who lowest income, disproportionately Black and brown people, are just not going to know about the application. It could take a while to figure it out. What if English is, not your first language and the application is right? So there's several bits and pieces of this that I don't think people in federal government, the Department of Education, are necessarily thinking about because they're sort of wrapped up in their own bubble of who would be able to get this. And I think we just sort of have a recurring theme with, not just the Department of Education, but the government, where we say we want to make it so that, if there are 100 people, we want it so that that one person can't take advantage of something. And so we're going to make the other 99 people go through this burdensome process, right? Rather than just full cancellation. And if we're worried that there's people who, for some reason, are super rich and also have student loans, right? We don't know who that person is, but if that person is out there, just tax them on the back end, right? Raise taxes on the wealthy, on the rich, to make sure that everyone's paying their fair share.
I mean, just to say nothing, I'm sorry, but that people like Rick Scott have run Medicare scams like crazy. These are he's a fucking first governor. When he was governor, he ran a giant Medicare scam that people and a lot of Republicans, politicians, they're running scams on our social programs all the fucking time. Oh, but did you actually hurt yourself on the job? And let's really interrogate, your workers' comp claim and all that bullshit. And of course, to say nothing of PPP loans, which I railed about. And then I found out that my husband tried to apply for a PPP loan just to see if he could. He was like, I don't know, I just did it. And then it got rejected, of course, because he doesn't have a fancy accountant and not even an LLC. But the point is, yeah, most people who get the big money have hookups and accountants and folks that get them that money, and to say nothing of the paperwork that's easy to fill out. They have the time. But can I ask you what you think? I initially was like 10K is not enough. Then I was like, oh man, this actually sounds it's a good start. I know that the Debt Collective has been saying this is a start. Where do you guys want to go from here? And I've heard various things. In my heart, I feel like Biden is not going to touch this issue again. But are you guys he better touch it? We're going to make sure there's more coming. This is just the beginning. And as we get used to the idea that, hey, this is possible, let's go for more. Where are you guys at on that?
Even further, right? He needs to cancel the rest of student debt. And let's talk about other debt types too. Let's talk about medical debt. Let's talk about credit card debt, which most of credit card debt is just medical debt. So we really think this is actually sort of opening a can of worms to sort of get millions of people, in the same way that pausing student loans during COVID, right, for almost 3 years now, most people with federal student loans haven't had to pay a dime on their federal student loans, which I think has drastically changed the psychology of debt and this idea of who owes what to whom. And so this is sort of a next step, right? Canceling this debt. People are immediately asking, well, why didn't you just cancel all of it? Now that they've seen him do it, they say, well, why don't you just cancel the rest of it? Or why did you make an income cap? Why can't you just cancel all? People in good faith and bad faith are saying, well, why don't you cancel medical debt? That's a great question. He should do that as well, right? Yeah. So we're definitely pushing for more. And Biden was not always going to do this, right? This is not something that he just had a sticky note on the corner of his desk, like, oh yeah, I have to cancel student debt, right? This was something that he was pressured into doing by organizations and activists and debtors on the ground and folks on the inside. And so we now have a proof of concept, right? And so imagine what we can do with more people organizing and more people raising their voices, more people sharing their stories, more people talking about other debt types. So, we have a proof of concept that, with enough organizing on the left, we can pressure an administration, whether that's Democrat or Republican, to take action. And so we should just move forward with that on pushing for more cancellation and for pushing for the cancellation of other debt types as well.
I love that. I was going to say that, and Ida, please jump in, but the majority of Americans support this move. But anecdotally and just generally, like, you see a lot of backlash, a lot of, I paid mine off, why can't other people pay theirs? What about this? What about that? And it kind of like, I kept on saying, like, damn, we're not ready for socialism. Like, we're not ready to think bigger about shit like debt, right? We're not ready to break from this pathology of, again, that bucket of crabs that, well, I got out, why can't you get out? And it's just like, there's part of me that I'm hopeful, because I think you're right, but it truly is breaking I think an indoctrination that Americans have around money and around, just privilege versus a right, the right to an education versus that, like, privilege. Oh, well, 1 in a million, or 1 in 100, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, that's not really a question, but I'm just, yeah.
Well, I mean, America has always positioned capitalism as a privilege. They have framed it as being patriotic and American, and it's what makes us free. They have, which is really what keeps us in bondage. They've always told us that the fact that we are able to become a billionaire, which we all know that that's not, you don't become a billionaire without oppressing a people, regardless of whatever you may think. There's nobody who's a billionaire that did it ethically. And if there is, and I'm wrong, please tell me, tweet me, let me know who those are, because I would love to, eat my words and find out who this person is. But I just think that coming from being a child of immigrants, that has always been one of the things that has been sold to people, is because you can go to America and be whoever you want to be. Right. And you can become, and so with that idea of that you too can become a billionaire, they sell you that it is a right for you to have to buy bottled water when it's a natural resource.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And that it's better that way. But yeah, you guys are really, I mean, Debt Collective has been on the forefront of breaking some of that mold. That ingrained mentality. And you're absolutely right. People are like, well, what about my credit card debt? Well, what about my this debt? What about, and I don't know, how do you sell folks on the idea of, like, solidarity and, like, community, like that this is good for all of us, even if you, let's say, don't have student debt?
Yeah, so that is a great question, and something that we try to do in several different ways, and sometimes it works good, sometimes it doesn't work very well at all. We really always are pushing back on this notion of scarcity. There is no zero-sum game. There is enough to go around. I can win and you can win, and we can all win. We can all get debts canceled, immoral debts, that is, or unjust debts. There are some debts that we do need to pay, and we talk about reparations and some climate debts and things like that all the time. But, there is a lot of juxtaposing certain debt types to another that we always push back on. And that's why we say we've never been a student debt organization. We've always been talking about household debts or community debts. We never use the term consumer debt, because you don't consume healthcare. You don't consume loans for college, right? You don't consume a mortgage. You just need a roof over your head. Right, and so right. I think one way that we try to sell people is by talking about how the elimination of debt and sort of ridding yourselves of this type of shame is just beneficial to society, right? And so we start to talk about these questions of, would you rather your doctor or your nurse, would you rather them be in debt, or would you, giving you your daily checkup or your yearly checkup, or would you rather them be debt free? We sort of talk about communities and what it looks like when other people are suffering and how that can actually burden you. But it's tough, but we really try to push out of this, like, individual mindset and understand that we are a society, we are a community. And that's really tough to push through, because that's at the, rugged individualism is at the sort of core of American psychology. And so that's I think why debt cancellation is so tough to get to, but why it's so remarkable that we've started to get here, because being indebted in a lot of ways, I think can feel American, right? It's this idea that you are, the average American dies $62,000 worth of debt. So, it feels very American to say, I'm bearing this burden and I'm going to pay this off for the rest of my life, because that is proof, that's my certificate that I earned it. And so this is really, it's flipping people's consciousness on their head.
So what you're saying is the average American has the last laugh? Is that what you're saying? 'Cause 62,000. I mean, does that automatically pass to our relatives, or do we just be like, peace, bye?
Right.
No, and to say nothing, you're talking about teachers and nurses and doctors and dentists and essential workers, people we need, and then you hear the like, well, it's your choice to go to school and get in debt. Like, I inherited a CrossFit gym from my dad. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene for some reason. I opened a bar that is gun themed. Now I'm Lauren Boebert, but like, Ted Cruz. My dad was wealthy, and I chalk up our escape from Cuba every chance I get, even though he was just one of the wealthy ones. Anyway, like, these are all the people who are now like, you got your degree in queer literature and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, man, these are people who are straight up helping. I mean, queer literature also a giant help, I would argue. But like and so you also have to think about, like, that's such a fucked up scarcity mindset too. Like, if you can't afford it, then don't go to school. Don't become a doctor. Don't become a nurse. Don't become a teacher, because of like, it's hard enough as it is to do those professions. And now you're blaming them because they should have known that it was going to be that expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I mean, speaking of what Aida was saying also earlier, like, if our entire, not just lack of education, but attitude towards education is backwards as hell. Anyway. Oh, Aida, you're on mute.
A lot of those people are talking to the people who don't have an education. That's their base. So those are the people that push back this whole anti-intellectual movement that you've seen since Donald Trump came along, and when Barack Obama, because all of these white people were so, their psyches broke that this black man is now the leader of the free world and far more educated and informed, and they're like, how is this possible? But that's who they're talking to. So when Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, well, then why don't you go be an electrician, is because she knows that a lot of electricians are part of her constituency, or a lot of people who don't have a formal education, because that's how they baited these people into this cult, into believing that other people are trying to take away from them, as opposed to the establishment that they belong to, because these people are getting a salary that comes from our taxpayer dollars. They have health care that's socialist. Their kids go to better schools than our schools because they can afford to go to private prep schools because of the money that we pay in taxes. Yet and still they go back and shit on the people who are trying to get an education, a better, so that they can better themselves. But they benefit from the people that are believing every day that Black people are trying to take their stuff, that Mexican, Central Americans, because, let's just be real, when they frame immigration, they give it a brown face. They completely erase Black immigrants while we talk about immigration and the Black people that were stuck in Mexico that were Haitian. So when we have these conversations and we think that these people are talking to us, when they're like, why are you getting it? They're not talking to us. They're talking to their base, who they are fueling with hate, to envy and education, because if those people start getting information and education, they're not going to support them.
Right.
And so that's why.
And if an electrician makes a living wage, right? Like, or if an electrician gets too much money, that's also bad too.
He's elitist. He's that, now you think you're better than everybody, because to them, they need you to be at the footstool. That's who they're talking to. They're not talking to you. They're not talking to us like, why you went and got an education. They talking to the man that's angry that a Black, brown, queer, Asian person got an education over them. And now they're saying, well, well, damn you then. If you went and got an education and learned how to read, you got to pay this loan. Because this person don't even, if you listen to some of these people arguing about student loans, they didn't even have a post-secondary education. We're like, why are you up in our business? Why are you worried about this? This is not even you didn't even go to college.
Or they did and they hide it. I mean, or Ted Cruz, who went to Princeton, is like, I'm never gonna, like, he's gonna wear his Princeton shirt on one of his fucking podcasts. Braxton, you go back. I'm going back to you. Republicans, and I assume before the beginning, they got a month now. They're trying to litigate this. They're going to find one of these, as Aida mentioned, kind of resentful people that either paid their own student loans and is going to be like, now that's illegal because, whatever. They're going to try and litigate. They're going to try and work it through the courts. What are your guys' thoughts? What's your thoughts on that strategy?
Yeah, we're not quite sure how successful they'll be because we are. It seems like Ted Cruz is asking the same questions we are. Who has standing to sue, right? So you can't just sue just to sue. You have to be able to prove to a judge, and we'll assume that the judge is fair or legitimate or follows law, but those aren't always judges. But we'll assume that the person has to make an actual effort to say that they were harmed. We're not really sure who would be able to make that argument. A lot of the student loan servicers themselves, right? Maybe someone who would have standing to sue because they actually work and deal with the loans, have said that that's not something that they're really interested in doing. So, we're not sure what a challenge would actually look like. And, once the loans are discharged, a future, a hypothetical future Republican president can't just go back and reinstate them. That's not how loans work. That would be creating a new loan. You can't do that. So just kind of wanted to shoot that talking point down because I know that's been said by a couple folks even at the White House. So we're sort of, we'll knock on wood, but we definitely are not sure who would have standing to sue and what a legitimate challenge would look like. And so, but we're hoping that the Biden administration remains, steadfast in this and just discharge the loans now, do it automatically. And we don't have to wait for this hypothetical litigation.
Absolutely. And, they're going to put up some ridiculous front, but as they did do with the ACA and abortion rights, but yes, everybody, studentaid.gov, debtcollective.org, I believe. Am I just making that up? Debtcollective.org. It is thanks to the work of people like Braxton and those of Debt Collective that, this win was even possible. So thank you so much. Everybody follow Debt Collective at Strike Debt on Twitter. And follow Braxton. Can we follow you at Braxton Brew 96 on Twitter? Thank you so much for joining us and for breaking it all down.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we'll take good care. And we have one more segment, Aida. I know you got to go, but I'm squeezing this in. This one I'm very excited about because a lot of bad things happen this week, but good things happen. And Biden's National Labor Relations Board has been very based lately, and they've ruled that Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz must hang on. Wait. Yes. Okay, here we go. Starbucks CEO must read his employees their union rights on video and send them apology letters for illegally withholding raises from union workers. Now, that's one of the many things they've been doing. They've been shutting down stores. They've been firing union organizers at Starbucks. We had Jazz on, who's a member of the Starbucks union a few weeks ago. Now, NLRB is like, not so fast. You have to reinstate these workers, and you got to straight apologize. So NLRB is demanding Schultz records a video confessing his alleged violations of labor law, and explaining the rights of the workers in front of union employees, a representative of the union, and a representative of Biden's NLRB. A recording of the video will need to be made available according to the complaint. And as part of its complaint, the NLRB is demanding that Schultz post a notice to Starbucks workers about their rights, and also that he read it into a camera personally. And I'm saying a lot of things again, and write them letters of apology. So a recording about their rights, look into the camera, Schultz, make it real. I just want like someone from Biden's NLRB to be like, do it again. I didn't believe that. That was so dry. Pep it up. That, and then individual apology letters for these actions. And like, this is so good. It's such a great development in the Starbucks union saga. It doesn't mean, the fight is over, but the fact that we've got like, this would never happen under Trump. The fact that we've got an NLRB that's like kind of, doing real shit is great. So my question, Aida, is which boss owes you an apology? Here we go. Hang on. Say you're sorry. That's what we want to know.
Man, I mean, who do I start with? I had a boss. I mean, I would say the boss that I had not that long ago. But you know what? I work for an organization that had he answered to a higher calling. So he wasn't really the person that was responsible for what was happening in terms of my wages, but he did cause a lot of mental stuff because he came in there every day complaining about Barack Obama. And it was, I think as a person of color who finally saw a reflection of themselves in the White House, something that I could say, oh, there's hope for someone, my son or whatever. It was just a constant beat down. But, I worked for so many people under so many horrible circumstances. And I never forget, because now that I'm in a different situation, I think about the people who, work at the malls. I worked retail, I worked at Foot Locker. I worked at the mall. I fried dough. I made tacos. Like I served. I worked at a lot of places. I was a bank teller, and bank tellers are people with money can treat you really shitty. Like, I've worked and I had so many jobs just to survive. And I will say that the minimum wage in this country really is a big part of why we stay where we stay in terms of the oppressed. You can't survive. And if you think that making a taco is beneath you or driving you around is beneath you, just think back to 2020 when you were calling those people essential, which people who you look down on for so long. Like I've developed a new policy that even if a server is shitty to me, I still give them at least 20%, because I don't know if you're having a shitty day because of what's happening to them at work or whatever it is. Like I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And I just think that, people in this country are so underserved. So if I have to say which boss owes me an apology, I would honestly have to say that they all do. I've never worked in an environment that was fair to the people who work there. And I'm blessed that I got out, but there are people still working in these retail stores.
But even in comedy, there's some shit gatekeepers. Can't always name names, but there's like, shit club owners, there's shit like bookers, there's people who, it's. And
you know what it is, but I feel privileged to be able to do what I love to do, which is why I didn't mention comedy, because comedy unto itself is horrible. We don't have a union like actors. We are the blue collar workers of the entertainment business. I have my male friends who have less of a following than I do, but because they're white men, will send me their quotes, and they will get offered 3 times more money than me to go work in the same exact place. And I have them. I have the receipts. I mean, I have good friends that'll be like, yeah, what did they offer you? Nah, this is what they offered me.
Right.
It's been horrible. But even in that, I still feel privileged. Like I
Right.
feel like, who am I to be complaining when there's a woman showing up to make lunch for kids at school who's not getting, you know what I mean? Like
I know what you mean. I mean, it is lucky to do what you do what I sometimes get to do, but getting on stage and making people laugh and having a good time, that is it's really fucking fun, and it is great. And but it's true, it could be the culture, it could be better. I know. So the person who owes me an apology, I was thinking AJ Plus, and I love all my AJ Plus people. I definitely have had like a million managers, and the dude who would come in hungover every single morning, and like one time I had like a work thing at my house, and he straight up, this is legit, I won't name names, he brought cocaine into my house. This was my boss, brought coke into my place and started doing lines in my bedroom without telling me. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? I was so mad. This guy was such a slob, and he was my boss for a while, and I had to, like, I was like, man, I know you are making like 300K right now. Like, fuck you. How dare you do coke in my bedroom? But also, then I worked at a restaurant I'm a terrible server, but I worked at a restaurant, and they wouldn't let us taste the wine because I was like, I want to be able to describe the wine. We weren't allowed to taste it, so we just kind of like swigged it in the back. So I'm mad at them. But then also, when I was like, oh, I'm putting in my 2 weeks because I'm gonna quit. Like, I can no longer do this job in 2 weeks. You can't put in 2 weeks at a fucking restaurant. Are you kidding me? You get fired immediately. So of course I was like, thank you. They were like, thank you. You can pick up your last check. And I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I needed these next 2 weeks of work, but I was such an idiot to be like, I'm doing you the courtesy of telling you I can't work anymore. And they were like, I'm doing you the courtesy of saying goodbye. Like,
Yeah.
so
You were being you were operating in integrity.
yeah, exactly. And it was annoying because it was like this is like white guy and his like Oaxacan wife. It was called the Oaxacan Kitchen, and they were all like, we're so amazing and we're like really liberal. You're like, yeah, you treat us servers like shit. Anyway, that's okay because I'm a bad server. I've spilled cokes on people all the time. I was like, I did not know what the fuck I was doing a lot of the time. Anyway, there's a couple people. A Risden says, I had a bitchy manager at a Subway accuse me of stealing it once, and she owes me an apology. Here's what I say. That's why you steal anyway, because you're gonna get accused. That's why you steal anyway. Camperman 5000. I had a motherfucker say I didn't sign my last time card, so he couldn't pay me. Told him he was lying and made him go get my paycheck. Good. All the time. And Todd Roy just says, fried dough, which I needed to tell Ida because you're like, I fried dough, and everyone's like, donuts. Ida Rodriguez, everybody. She's the best. She's booked and busy and doesn't always have time, but I'm grateful when she does. And like I said, always when I listen to Ida, I feel like I just jumped in like a cool stream. Like it's like, refreshing.
That's how I feel about you.
Oh, you're so sweet. That is.
I mean it.
I don't know. I think there's a clarity that you have that I fucking love, and I need to go see you soon.
Yes.
So everybody check out Ida Rodriguez. Where can we get your dates on?
So they're on my website, funnyaida.com. They should be updated by the end of the day today, actually. But yeah, I'm coming to I'm going to Humboldt County. I'm doing the Arcata. I'm doing a theater in Arcata on September 22nd, but all of the students from Cal Poly Humboldt can come for free. So
That's wonderful.
Yes, we worked it out, and we are excited because those students were the ones who asked for me to be there. And it is Van Duzer Theater on September 22nd. The show starts at 8:00 p.m. And if you are a student at Cal Poly, please bring your ID because you get in for free.
That's amazing. You are gonna sell that out and crush it. and then get very high afterwards in Humboldt County. Aida, thank you so much. Please take very good care, and I hope to see you soon.
You will. Thank you for having me here, and cheers to everybody who follows you. You have the best people that are on your team.
I do. Those people are here. They're in the chat. They're behind the scenes. They're in all the places. A couple comments. Hufflebadger22, this is on Twitch. I just dropped in time. Hello, Fran. Missed you on Monday. Hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. That is in reference to my appearances on the Damage Report every Monday. You could see me there. You can also see me on Wednesdays for the Twitchuation room. But of course, the main show is here Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. Let's see. Mike Boy Raps. This is our comedian in training. Mike Boy Raps says, guys, I got my first $10 for doing a stand-up show the other day, and nothing can stop me. Congratulations, Mike Boy. I support you, even though I've never seen you do a joke, but I support you. Let's see. Willie Gus on Twitch. Could you look into addressing Newsom's veto of safer consumption sites in CA? People will die because of this decision. Yeah, I think that's him vetoing that is such a fucking miss. And I know Nithya Raman, a city councilwoman here, progressive city councilwoman, has been trying to hold his feet to the fire on it. And I haven't been following it enough. But this is the thing about Democrats, right? This is the thing. They talk a big fucking talk, but then they're so scared. They just live their lives like a shaky little leaf, afraid of being called like, what? I don't know, like that you're soft on crime. Do you know how good it would? You know how many people's lives you could save by having safe injection sites? But I get it. You can't. Can you not privatize that? You can't make it into like a fancy mall. You can't like put like a Chuck E. Cheese in there, like whatever. Like I understand you're not going to make a lot of money from it. Don M on YouTube, thank you so much for that super chat. That's so generous of you. Finally got to catch a live show. I look forward to your shows, even if only on demand. You're the best. And you guys can always listen as a podcast. Bitchuation Room, anywhere you get your podcast. Give us a 5-star review. You got it. It really helps people discover the show. I do not have much backing other than you all and the patrons. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that bonus show in just a little bit. Let's see. No Sacred Cow says they should have canceled all interest retroactively and had payments go to principal. There we go. Miss Anonymous saying I borrowed 10,000 ended up owing 16,000. That's fucking crazy. Simple Ways says it does seem like everyone is in debt. Indeed. Kedge Dragon on Twitch. All my student debts have been paid. I have no debt currently. Cancel all debts incurred acquiring and developing social benefits like education, etc. Yeah, exactly. If rich people can write off their fucking private planes, then we should be able to write off everything we do. Look, I went outside, okay, and I looked at a bird. That's right. That's at least 1,000 off my student debt because that bird, I just made that bird's day. You know what I'm saying? Beatnik, thank you for the super chat. You're very, very sweet. And Jerry Ty, thank you for the super chat saying, love Francesca, Aida, and guests. Great show today, as always. You guys are great, as always. And, of course, as always, it's the fart song. Alrighty, thank you so much to the new patrons at $10 or more. Depressed Progressive, welcome to the Frantifa. Sheila Leeming, welcome to the Frantifa. Yilva Leistat, welcome back to the Frantifa. You were here, but where'd you go? Also, all the $5 patrons, I see you, I love you. Up your pledge, baby. We don't have any big tippers, but that's okay. TBR-live on Venmo, TBR live on Cash App. Twitch subs, High Anxiety Dragon Girl. I'm sorry I missed these last week. Depressed Progressive, also on Twitch. Candace Lynn 112, Hunger Games 1989, Just Czar, Rar Bear Dragon, Z Park Z, and I'm sure a lot of other people on Twitch, and I apologize. I'm going to open that window up because, Mama got pregnancy brain, so I haven't been opening my windows. But next time, Twitch, you're my priority. I love you. I love you very much. But not as much as I love Paige Oamek, our producer, Maximillien Inhoff, and Alexandra Ornes, and Andy Vasoyan, all who do their part to make the show happen. We stream every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Twitch. Follow the show on Twitter at Bitchuation Pod, TikTok, and Instagram at Franny Fio. And remember, y'all, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it, guys. Make calls. Bye.